What's a dark family secret you uncovered? I was the family secret. My biological parents started having kids as teenagers. For context, when my biological mom found out she was pregnant with me, she was 21 and I was their fourth child. They quickly realized they needed to get their act together. They were already struggling financially, had countless drug issues, etc. They decided that they were going to put me up for adoption. I was a baby. I was adopted by a loving family quite quickly, only about an hour drive from the city I was born in. Coincidentally, I ended up returning to that same city for college. My sophomore year, I decided to seek out my biological family. Turns out, my biological parents separated right after I was born. My biological mom is still in and out of jail to this day, but my biological dad was able to start a new chapter. He got clean and sober, remarried, started going to church, and built a legitimate career for himself. He told his new wife about me when they first met, but didn't tell any of his children. My other siblings didn't know I existed. Thanks to the internet, I ended up tracking down his work number and gave him a call. Later on, he said as soon as I said, "Hi, this might be really weird," but he knew it was me. Apparently, ever since I turned 18, him and his wife were waiting anxiously for me to resurface. They knew the day would come eventually. That evening, they sat my siblings down and told them about me. It was difficult at first, but now I'm 25 and me and him have a pretty solid relationship. My brother discovered we had a sister because he was hitting on a girl at the bar and they got to talking about their parents. Turns out we have the same dad. He threatens to kill me whenever I bring it up. Well, at least they figured it out before and not after. I went to high school with two people who were banging for a while and ended up having the same dad. No one brings it up. They found out about 5 years after. My grandpa doesn't know that his dad was hit and killed by a drunk driver. He was like 2 when his dad died and can't remember any of it. The only thing he said was that he thought it involved a truck. I found the article of my great-grandfather's death when I started digging into my grandpa's family tree. I also found that great-grandpa was the result of a teen pregnancy and was raised by his grandparents. I'd tell him, but I'm not really sure there's too much point in bringing it up now. Great-grandma ran a hotel in the late 1800s near a train depot and army fort in the Oklahoma Territory. Turns out it was a brothel. Great-grandma was a madam. She must have been good at it cause she left a stack to my grandma. The Victorian era. Women couldn't vote or show their ankles in public, but there was a brothel in every town. I remember hearing about the Western Territories ended up being the first places to give women the vote specifically because so many women were in power, running brothels and owning businesses. So turns out my mother was engaged to a guy. He went on a long family holiday to Europe. When he got back, my mum was with his best friend, my father. With all due respect, that's a violation of bro code. Before my granddad committed suicide, he was planning to kill every single family member in the house: grandmom, my mom, my aunt, 2 uncles, few more people. Edit with more details, he had left a detailed suicide note blaming everyone for his death and his intention to kill all. Family speculation is that it was due to some extramarital affair he had, and how the family was obstructing his path. My mom's family is still traumatized by this entire episode and no one likes to talk about it. I guess that trauma of waking up one day and learning that your dad, who just committed suicide, was also planning to kill all of you, is impossible to shake off in a lifetime. How did they know that? He had left a detailed suicide note blaming entire family for his own suicide and how he had planned to off them all. When I was a kid I knew my grandfather was odd. He'd call me his grandson even when I was wearing a dress and clearly female, but my parents would tell me to ignore it. Then I found out that when my dad was a kid, Grandpa sold my dad's sister Barbara to someone and kept my dad and his brother because he didn't want a girl in the family. My dad found his sister Barbara around the time I was in middle school via calling around to get records. They were reunited. She's my favorite aunt now. No one liked Grandpa. Not nearly as bad, but I never met my grandfather even though he didn't die until I was around 10 and he only lived an hour away. He didn't get along with my dad. Drunkenly beating up your kid may result in isolation, but he refused to acknowledge me or my sister, because he was so pissed that there was no one to carry on the family name as my dad was his only son. When my youngest brother was born, he reached out to my father for the first time in 10 years to congratulate him. He also disowned my two aunts because they moved out and went to college. The younger aunt once described to me the dread she felt telling him that she'd been accepted to college, knowing she'd be summarily kicked out just as her sister was. However, he reconciled with her later in life because she had two sons and no daughters. Anyway, joke's on him. My sister and I are far more healthy and successful than my male cousins that he considered worthy of his love and attention. Uncle met his wife during the time he was using drugs. She was a prostitute. They have two kids now and they're great parents. Wouldn't ever guess that they have rather dark pasts. They haven't let it visibly affect them. Uncle met his wife during the time he was using drugs. She was a prostitute. They have two kids now and they're great parents. Wouldn't ever guess that they have rather dark pasts. They haven't let it visibly affect them. Pretty inspiring really. I understand why they wouldn't exactly want to brag about their past, but being able to get to a better place in their lives, good for them. That must have been hard. Uncle Joseph is very probably a serial killer, a major suspect for the West Mesa bone collector. He is also convicted as the middle school rapist. One day Joseph was just sort of out of the picture and no concrete answer was given why. At the time I was young enough that I didn't think to push or particularly wonder at the details. As someone born and raised in Albuquerque, I got a chill as soon as I read that. The West Mesa murders are something not discussed much yet we all know. I can't imagine what it's like being in your position. As much as we want answers, I hope you're able to separate yourself as much as possible the possibility. I'm sorry that you have to live with wondering if he is the man. Best wishes, my friend. We have a set of plates our family uses only on Easter. My mom always fusses about that they are great-grandmother, pre-World War I family heirlooms. As someone who is interested in this kind of stuff, I looked up the maker's mark. 1940s, at best. I haven't told anyone because I have my eyes on another set of china, and I want to seem magnanimous when I compromise with my sister to have these. My dad was discharged from the military for going AWOL. He had found out his ex from when he was like 15 had his children back then and never told him about it. I have two siblings who are twins out there. I don't know their names or what they look like, but they're out there somewhere and they're only 3 years older than me. I can say I'd want to meet you if you were my mystery sibling. If your dad feels bad about it, it might comfort him to know you don't think he's that person anymore and you forgive him for it. It might be the best relief he's ever gotten. I'd at least reconsider it. A lot of good could come from something like that. My grandfather tried to kill my dad with an axe. Literally showed up to his place of work and went looking to cut him down. And somehow, my unprepared dad fought him off barehanded. So Grandpa escaped and came back the next day to finish the job with a gun, but my dad didn't show up to work, so dude offed himself in the parking lot, leaving the bitchiest suicide note ever. I've told the story a lot of times here, but I still can't completely grasp that it and the circus of other shit that surrounded it were real. It's a long story. To try not to go crazy here. Grandpa beat him and his brothers and his mom. Alcoholic for sure, but probably mental problems too. They are in family, yay. Anyways, my dad had enough of it and worked a ton of jobs and moved them out of the house in the middle of the night. New life kinda relocation thing. So he was pretty pissed my dad ruined his life by I guess standing up for himself. Eventually the dude tracked down where my dad worked and went to end him. Far as people finding out, I'm pretty sure his brothers and mom knew. I don't know how many other families did. I only found out from my mom when I was like moving away to university, and I have no idea why she told me. I thought it was bullshit, but eventually he confirmed it. It sort of filled in a lot of gaps in his character. If you like the content, please consider subscribing, and don't forget to hit the like button.